Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Famvestor Podcast. I'm your host, Sunny Burns.
And I'm your co-host, Sunmarie Burns.
So today we're talking to a lovely couple, a family of 6 that has been on the road for the last 7 years.
Right.
Yeah, they sold their home, packed up everything, and just bought an RV and just have been traveling ever since.
Yeah, what a wild and exciting life. It's a really cool story, and we love talking to them and digging into it.
Yeah. So it's very exciting, and you're definitely going to enjoy this one. Quick update. Today, we actually signed up our kids for their first triathlon. So at 6 years old and 4 years old, they're going to be doing their first triathlon. It's in central Jersey called... I'll have to get that.
Rumson is the name of the town.
Rumson, New Jersey, yeah.
Yes.
And it'll be exciting. It's a half-mile run, a 75-yard swim. I think that equates to like about 250 feet, and a 2.5-mile bike ride. So it should be fun for them, especially since
they're excited about it.
Yeah.
We've been reading them a book, The Warrior Kid, right?
Yeah, The Warrior Kid. I don't know if I've talked about that on the podcast, but that's a great book to read to your kids to motivate them. Teaches a lot of life lessons, and just, teaches resiliency and work ethic. And yeah, it's a great book. Highly recommend it. Couldn't recommend it enough. I actually bought it for 2 of my friends so they could read it to their kids. And I've never bought a book for a friend for their kids, so highly recommend it. I'll have that in the show notes as well.
But yeah, that kind of sparked the whole conversation of goal setting for our kids, because we read them this book, and in the book, it talks about setting goals for yourself and making them happen, and the reward that comes from working hard at something and actually achieving it.
Yeah.
So we set goals that our kids run a certain distance, right? Balin, our eldest, was to run a mile, and our middle son Alvin was to run half a mile.
And they already did that, and they set those goals in January. It's only March, and they've accomplished that.
And they had a lot of fun working at it. You go out and training. They said, I'm going to go training with Daddy. Very serious about it.
Right. And we were watching, I think just earlier in the week, a YouTube video about like little kids doing triathlons. They were getting pumped, and then I was like, you guys want to do one? And so we looked one up, and we signed them up. So they're excited.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But they're definitely eager beavers.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a good, challenge. They'll see their cohorts who are running alongside them. They'll get excited, and they'll just hopefully propel them forward to this, competition, healthy lifestyle, being active, being fit, and I think it'll be good.
Balin's really hoping to get a trophy.
Yes, he likes his trophies. His math trophies. We've been doing extra math with him at home. It's the only online thing we do with Valen, or any of them really. Extramath.com, something like that. But it's kind of like Kumon, where it's just repetitious math puzzles he solves online, and he gets trophies for them. So he always gets
virtual
excited.
Trophies.
But
it doesn't seem to matter that it's virtual.
Yes.
He still finds them really
Shows
exciting.
them off to us. The bronze one and the gold one. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, without further ado, let's enjoy the show.
You're listening to the Famvestor Podcast. If you're looking to raise your family with intention, gain financial independence, and live a life of true freedom, you're in the right place. Join us as we explore together how to create thriving families, because strong families are the cornerstone for a world at peace.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Famvestor Podcast. Super excited today. We finally have an RV family we get to interview. We have Craig and Bryanna. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here, and we love talking about RVing and family travel and all that. So let's do this.
Yeah, so awesome. And Craig and Bryanna, they're a family of 6, 4 kids on the road for, I think we're going to dig into it, but it's been a number of years, I think 5+ that they've, sold their house. They used to have a 3,000 square foot house on a half acre. They downsized to a mobile home and just have been on the road ever since. So there's a lot to unpack and so much to unveil, because I'm super curious, just a full-time travel family, how they do it with all the kids, and again, thank you so much for being here. So I guess to kind of start out, it sounds like you kind of lived the traditional American lifestyle, had a nice big house, some land, you were living the dream, and then what inspired, where's the origin story of, taking a 180 and, selling it all and then going on the road? What happened there?
Yeah, it's funny. People ask us that, and I think they're wanting us to say, like, there was this one moment that we were like, let's do this. And that's not what happened. It was kind of like an ongoing process where I was actually a stay-at-home mom, and so was my sister. And we kind of, while the guys were working, we'd sit and have conversations about like, oh, we should travel more, we should do different things, and just kind of talked about it and started to look into different options and saw these families that were traveling full time, but they were traveling overseas full time. They weren't really in RVs in the US. That wasn't really a thing back then. This was almost or more than 7 years ago now that we were having these initial conversations. And it wasn't really a thing then. So we were like, well, we can't do that because we all had pets. So we're like, we want to bring our pets with us. So then we came up with this idea of RVing. So I wouldn't say there was any like magic moment. It was just more, we're spending so much time like going to like Menards and Target and buying stuff for the house and keeping the house clean and, you know, just keeping it maintained and doing all that. And he was working a full-time job. So we only had a week or two to really travel a year. And it was just all like, it's not enough. Let's do something more. And that was pretty much what led us to where we are now.
Wow. So I came home from work and she threw this idea at me and I'm like, okay.
Was it like, okay, yes, crazy lady, this will fade eventually, or what?
It started like that, but then it picked up steam and then I started drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm like, yeah, this sounds awesome.
Wow, that is amazing.
So it almost sounds from your story like it wasn't just your family, but your extended family as well that was inspired to do this. Is that right?
Yeah, totally. So my sister and her family sold their house and bought an RV the exact same time we did.
Wow.
And the first RV park we went to, we actually stayed right next to them for a season. So actually for almost 5 months while my husband and her husband both went into work still in our local city. So it kind of gave us like a chance to be able to learn this RV lifestyle and to figure out how we were going to make money on the road. And then fast forward to about 2.5, 3 years after we've been on the road, and my parents now travel full time in an RV on the road as well.
That's insane.
You're changing lives, converting people.
From the inside. Does your sister still travel, and does she have kids as well?
Yep, she still travels, and she has 2 kids as well, and they're right around my kids' age, so they're like best friends with my kids. And then my parents are still on the road too. We are actually all just together at the campground we were at for over 2 months, and my sister and her family just left like 2 days ago, and we'll be leaving soon, and my parents will be heading out. So we kind of all travel together, and then we're like, okay, that's enough, and we all kind of go our own ways for a while, and then we come back together again. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is amazing. That sounds like. Do you guys often travel together? Or it's like a once a year, let's all get together at this campground, or how does that work?
No, it's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. I'll be quiet now. No, I'm kidding.
No. He's really good friends with my sister's husband and my parents. It's all good. They're good in-laws, and he's told me that. I'm not telling him to say that.
No, we have a lot of fun together. Yeah,
so, but no, I would say we probably travel together at least half the year, if not more. And it's not usually though, like consistently. Like we'll be together, we'll go apart, we'll come together, we'll go apart. But we're kind of always looking and seeing where each other's at and trying to stay in the somewhat same area and have a plan where we'll meet again. And the kids love it too. Like every time they leave, like, no, we want our cousins back. So like for their sake too, we like to stay close. So
I just find that so beautiful and kind of inspiring in a way. You know, you have this very fluid lifestyle. You're coming, you're going, and yet I think a fear that a lot of people have when they're considering perhaps this type of lifestyle is just that how far will it take them from their loved ones? You know, the extended family who are usually pretty stationary. It's like, well, I want to go travel and see the world, but what if I have to do it all alone? You know, I'm giving up the family dynamic of a home closer to family and friends. The fact that your whole family could do this, I think, is just really awesome.
But I think you guys also take advantage. Like Craig, I don't think your parents are on the road, but you guys station at your parents' house every once in a while, right?
Yeah, for sure. We do. When we go back, it's one of those things, like when we go back and see my parents, like we want it to be as intense as possible. So we park in the driveway. We see them all the time, like every day. So just because we don't see them that much throughout the year. So we really want to make the most of that time when we're back. So yeah, it works out well. And being able to stay in their driveway, I think we even have a stronger connection with them because we've spent so much time with them when we're there versus when we did like live in the same city. They were about a half hour away from us, and like we didn't even maybe saw them once a week, and that was it. Where now this is like intense, like we're here, we're there, and we're seeing them, and then the kids are excited to go back. So I know exactly what you're saying, and definitely was a fear of ours when we got on the road as well. But
I would say too, like over time, you kind of just get used to all of that as well. And it becomes definitely less scary and more normal. And you still have, question it at times, like, oh, would it be better if we were in one place where the kids didn't have to say bye all the time? But then also you miss the excitement of saying hi when you haven't seen each other in a long time. And that excitement is like a whole nother level. So there are some good pieces to it too.
Wow. I'm curious, so our podcast is all about family, finance, and freedom, and you guys fit that bill pretty well. You have the freedom lifestyle, you have your families involved, and, finances. I'm curious how you guys were able to, stay on the road for the last 7 years or so and finance this whole endeavor. I mean, You guys aren't paying, you sold your house, so you're not paying a mortgage. Is it a drastically lower cost of living for you guys on the road? And still, how do you keep the cash flow coming?
Your quality of life that you're in, you can enjoy what you're doing while being on a road.
Right.
Totally. So I want to add this in too. So our why is family, freedom, travel.
Nice.
That's our why behind why we're doing this. So I thought that lined up well. But yeah, so what we did is when we first got on the road, Craig was actually working a 9-to-5 job that he was able to go into his boss and talk to them and be able to take that remote. And again, this was back 7 years ago when people didn't really do this. So he was actually the first one in his group to have done this. So jumped through a bunch of hoops to make that happen. But then once he got on the road and was working 9 to 5, we realized he didn't like that he had to be sitting at the kitchen table all day working while I was out exploring. And by the time he was done working, it was like, getting late. It was dinner time. The kids were done. Like we weren't ready to do anything. And then the weekends we could just go. But then we were just like weekend warriors. We're like, no, we want more freedom. So that's when we decided that I would focus on building the 2 businesses I was working on, which one of them was at the time a virtual assistant business called Virtual Powerhouse. And the other one was Crazy Family Adventure, our blog and our website and our brand and everything. So I had started both of those right when we got on the road, and Craig was still working at the time. So I was able to build them up, at night when the kids were sleeping and things like that. Well, when we made the decision that we wanted this to be our full-time income, we basically gave me 6 months to take both of those businesses and make them replace what Craig's income was. So he would work his 9 to 5. When he was done working, he would take the kids, and I would basically work till like 3, 4, or 5 in the morning and then get up and then take the kids. And it was just this like crazy hectic time. And at the time, the kids were like 7, 5, 5, and 3, which is like crazy to me right now to think of that. And then, of course, we put ourselves in Yellowstone National Park, where my sister and her family were working, where internet is not good except for at like midnight. I'm like, why would you do that when you're trying to build a business? But this is how we roll. So we did it. I was like, I'm not letting it stop us. So then basically in about 5 months, I hit the point where I was able to take the businesses and make enough money with them that he was able to go in and tell them he was leaving. And they said, well, do you want to stay on part-time? Like, sure, we'll take that. So that was awesome. So that was now years ago. So now at this point, like he's done with all of that. And we're just doing the 2 businesses, which are Virtual Powerhouse, where I do Pinterest and social media support for small businesses. And I do have a team of people. So I have like an amazing operations manager, an amazing team leader, and then a group of about 8 strategists that do the majority of the day-to-day work. So I'm just kind of managing from the higher level with that. And then we have right now, I think 45 customers. So it can grow and scale that way because I have a team of people and I don't have to work like, all of those accounts then. I have people that are doing it for me, which is amazing. And then with Crazy Family Adventure, with the blog, like our long-term goal was the blog to be our full-time income. And we built Virtual Powerhouse up while we were building the blog up. Well, now they're both full-time incomes. We're like, oh, this extra money is really nice. So we're just keeping them both going and trying to figure out how to make them, both as passive as we can. So with the blog, Craig is like the in-house IT guy, which is amazing. He has a computer science degree. So I don't have to worry about the back end. I'm yelling, this doesn't work. And so he'll come in and he'll fix it. And he knows how to do all the back end, which is awesome and a great combination because I can focus on the building it and scaling it and doing everything else. And he makes sure things are still running. So
definitely helpful.
Yeah, it is extremely helpful. And I don't know if I could do it without it because I don't like that technical side of stuff. So it's great that he's there and able to do that. So with both of those businesses, they both on their own have brought in 6 figures each. So it's definitely a way. We're making more money now than we were in a house. I will say that we also like to spend our money, so our bills are not less just because we don't have a mortgage. Yeah, we just like to spend money.
Yeah,
but.
definitely not. Like we see so many cool places like restaurants and like just activities and like things, sightseeing stuff. So we spend money. We do it.
And we have 4 kids who are like into gaming, so they want gaming PCs. And then, my daughter wants new clothes and like new whatever. And they didn't choose like this lifestyle, so we still try to give them a lot of the same things they would have had if we weren't doing this. So yeah, we're not any like Dave Ramsey people. We're no budgeters. We're no anything. We're just like, we want to spend money, so we're gonna figure out how to make more money so we can spend what we want to spend. And I'm not saying I recommend it.
But I think the key takeaway there is you're spending it on life experiences. You're enriching your life and just everything that there is out there when you're exploring. And I think that that's such an incredible opportunity. You're not spending it on meaningless junk that you fill your house with, because obviously with a mobile home, there isn't that much space. So you have to be kind of judicious as to what you buy as far as things, but just the enriching your personal lifestyle by what you do. I mean, I think that is such a fantastic way. That's what money's there for, to help you live your best life. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, so awesome. And so awesome that it sounds like, that 6-month intensive where you're building up these businesses, you didn't shelter yourself away in some home. You did it while still spending in your family,
That's
but
impressive.
just really hammering, just doing it, in the off times when you could find time. And that's really incredible.
I'm impressed that you could scale it to that degree within such a short amount of time, 6-month time frame, to really turn it into something profitable for you so that this lifestyle made sense. That's impressive as well.
Yeah, I don't know how I did it either.
So I'm just curious, because we do have a lot of frugal people listening to our podcast. There's a lot of frugality there. If you did want to, be more frugal, be more mindful, instead of maybe paying for a lot of, I don't know, like zip lining things, and you just do like hikes instead, could you have made this, would it... Like
could you make
on
this
average,
lifestyle
cheaper
work if you didn't have as much to go off of?
Or I guess I'm just wondering, is it cheaper than owning a home? Like if you didn't want to like necessarily do like all these like cool adventures and cool extras, and you just kind of want to sit at a campground and just go fishing or something more like that, would it be cheaper? Or you can't, it's kind of it'll equate to like your mortgage?
No, it definitely can be cheaper. I think it comes down to, there are so many different ways that people travel. So if your goal is to go on the road and not spend a lot of money, you can absolutely do that. And I think to do that, some of it, and people we've met have done this, you buy your RV that you're going to be in and you don't get a loan on it. We've always gotten loans on it because, again, it fits our financial way we do things. But you just save up money, or you sell your house to then buy a rig so you don't have any payments. The same thing with your car. No payments on your car. So if you take those 2 things out of the mix, then you're just paying for gas. You're paying for campgrounds, but there are campground memberships out there that you can get that you pay a one-time upfront fee, and then you can stay at those campgrounds for free. You're always paying like $50, $60 a month just to maintain your membership, but basically for free throughout the whole year if you wanted to. So there's lots of different ways that you can do it and be way, way more budgeted. And we've gone like as low as spending like $4,000 a month, and we've gone as high as spending like $10,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's including all of our bills, our traveling, like everything that we're doing. So you really can go on that, from that low to that high. And we know people that do it for even less than 4,000. We say 4,000, like, what are you spending your money on? Like, what are you doing? So I really think it can be a personal preference. Mm-hmm. And if you set yourself up right before you get on the road, you can definitely do it for less. For that 4,000, mm-hmm. we were paying a car payment and an RV loan, and we still were hitting that 4,000, and we were still traveling, mm-hmm. but we were boondocking and staying for free at places and everything. But I think you can definitely do it for less. But I would caution that just because you're going to go live in an RV does not mean you're going to spend less money. You still have to be super, super conscious of it. Because when we first got on the road, we thought we were going to save a ton of money. And we got on the road just thinking it would happen. And within like the first like 2, 3, 4 months, we're like, we're spending more money now than we were in a house. Like, what's going on? And we were just staying in one spot, one campground at that time. So it was like, how is this happening? Like, what are we doing? So just like with anything, I think if it's important to you to budget and keep prices down, you can definitely do that. It just has to be a priority. And for us, it just hasn't been.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what was going on there? Like, where was these expenses coming from? Do you remember?
No, because we don't budget or track.
I'm going to guess, because I know when we go on trips, you know, you kind of in the beginning, you know, you're thinking, oh, well, this is fun what we're
on
doing.
vacation.
So let's just see everything we can possibly see and do here, because we may never come back here again. Let's take the chance. Whereas if you're living in a home and it's same old, you know, you don't go out every day. You don't go buy things every day. There's actually a lot of days you just sit around the house and, you know, don't spend any money. So that's probably something to watch for. I know when I go on vacation, it happens to me. I get spend happy.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's definitely a challenge. And I know when we were first on the road with our RV payment and the car payment, that together was probably like $900 a month. So that could be someone's mortgage payment, you know, really. And then we weren't paying like the electric and the water and things like that. But even when we were in a house, that was just like a couple $100s a month or something. It wasn't crazy. So outside of that, we're still paying for health insurance. We're still paying for car insurance, RV insurance, you know, all of that type of stuff. So the only real big things you're taking out of the mix are the mortgage and your house bills. And it really, if you look at that, depending on the size of your house, that may not even be that big. So, but yeah, and I think then we thought we had more money because we didn't have a mortgage. So I think it was like, oh, the kids want a new toy. Let's go get a new toy. Or, oh, they want like, and just spending without thinking, where we were in a house and had a mortgage. You felt like we didn't have money. We're now also, oh, we don't have any more. But then reality set in and we started to figure it out.
Interesting. So when you started out, your kids were 7, 5 and 5, and 3, you said?
They were 6, 4, 4, and 2 when we first got on the road. And then when I started really focusing on my businesses, they were 7, 5, 5, and 3.
So how was that transitioning space-wise to have a family of 6 in an RV? How do you have like I'm not even sure how RVs work. Are there like bedrooms in an RV? Or do you have 2 separate bedrooms? Does it feel cramped? Was it an adjustment to get used to moving to such small quarters?
Yeah, so I would say that when the kids were that age, they just wanted to be right next to me all the time. They were always just right under my feet, right next to me where I was. So I felt like when we moved into a smaller space, like that really didn't feel that different. And even like we had always co-slept and I had breastfed them. So like they were always in bed with us and whatever. So none of that stuff really felt any different. We got a motor home when we started. And do you want to talk about what we did with that?
Yeah, so when we first got on the road, we had a 39-foot diesel pusher. So it's like one of these big bus things, right? And it had a ton of basement storage. So we knew we had to have a lot for bringing the contents of our house into it. And then these motorhomes are really set up for a couple. They're not really family friendly at all. So they'll have like one bedroom usually in the back, and it's a queen bed usually, and that's kind of it. So we had to get creative on how we're going to sleep 6 people in this thing and not just a couple. So we ended up taking out some of we took out one of the closets in the back, which was like a big kind of wardrobe closet. We put 2 bunk beds in there, and then across the bed from us, there was a
like a dresser.
It was like a dresser thing. So we put 2 bunk beds there. So we all slept in this back room. And even the dogs, they were on the floor in the back room. So all like 8 of us at the time were in this back room. So everyone was, you know, complaining how cold it was. And we were like, no, we were toasty warm. Like, you know?
8 heaters in here.
Yeah. And we had to get creative with it because there's slide outs that make the RVs bigger, right? So they come out of the sidewalls of the RV. And when those came out, we'd extend these beds for the kids to sleep on. But when it was time to close it up, we had to come up with a way to store them out of the way so it didn't crash into things when the slide outs were coming in. So we had to do some engineering and stuff, and we figured it out. But
wow,
and that was like my favorite like room that we've ever had in any of our RVs. Like I loved that. Like at the end of the night, like everyone was right there. I could hear them breathing. I could see them. Like it was so relaxing and good. And if people, of course, want to know when they went to sleep at night, we could close the door and lock it and go out in the living room and have our own space. So you figure all that stuff out. But I would say that the space thing, given the age of our kids, was not like an issue, like really at all. And then we were outside so much. So we're traveling where it's warm. So we're just constantly outside. And that became a big part of our living space. We're in a house, you go outside sometimes, but like it's not as consistent. Where in this style of living, you're outside all the time, so it's part of your living space.
Well, the funny thing is with that is, so we had this big motorhome, and we ended up spending too much time inside, and we got too comfortable in there. So we're like, all right, we got to shake it up. Let's go smaller. So we ended up getting like a way, way, way smaller RV just to make us go outside more.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm curious, now where it's like 7 years later from when you started, and I guess your 6-year-old is now, I don't know, 13, 14. How old's your oldest?
He's 13, yeah.
13 years old, and I feel like at that age you're kind of like, oh, I want some privacy, and now you're even smaller. Is there any of that coming into play, or is everyone like
they're used to it?
Yeah, they're used to it.
They're comfortable with the
Yeah,
space.
it matters. So over the last 7 years, we've been in 5 different rigs. So we had a 39-foot Class A, then we went down to a 23-foot Class C, a 21-foot travel trailer, a 30-foot travel trailer, and now we're in a 36-foot fifth wheel. So we kind of went bigger, smaller, and then bigger again. So in this 36-foot fifth wheel, the reason we got it is because Craig and our oldest wanted more space. They were ready for more room. So we got into a rig that now each of the kids have their own separate, not bedroom, but separate bed space with like something separating the bed, so they each have their own area, and they have a little room in the back where they can set up their gaming PCs and stuff like that. So we're in the rig we're in now actually has like 3 separate rooms in it. So that works out well. And I think given the age of the kids, I would definitely recommend something like this, especially if you're just getting on the road, because that would be a big shock to older kids that are used to a bedroom if they didn't have any space to themselves. But now that we're in this one, all of our kids have said to us multiple times, I really like this rig. I really like the setup. And we'll ask them all the time, like, do you guys want to like go into a house or do whatever? Like, no, it's good. It's good. I don't want to change it. It's good. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I think more importantly than the privacy is they want somewhere where they can kind of set up their stuff and not have to take it down every time we have to move. And we kind of have that here. So there's kind of a stationary spot where they can set up their computers, and my daughter can set up her stuff by her bed. And when we travel, they don't have to take that really down necessarily. So
yeah, they can have their own area that can stay set up how it is. So that was important.
I'm curious, 7 years you've been doing this. What is like your 5-year plan? Are you guys going to still be on the road? What do you guys like envision there?
It's just like our budget.
we have no idea.
That's so
Where
awesome.
the wind blows ya.
Exactly. We would really like to go international. Obviously, with everything happening, that's kind of hard to do right now. But we're at the point where we definitely like to do some international travel. And I would say that once you've lived this lifestyle, like it's really hard to think of going back to like stationary life. Like maybe eventually we'll have property or a house that we go back to for a little bit, but I think we'd always want to keep it flexible that we can just get up and go when we want to and travel and do what we want to do when we want to do it. And campground life is amazing. I think you don't always hear people talk about that, but that's definitely one of the things that we can't imagine giving up is that we travel with other families a lot. So we get up in the morning and like the kids are like running out the door and they're playing with their friends, like from sun up to sundown. We're sitting around campfires talking with our friends multiple nights a week. You go out and you have coffee with someone, you're walking your neighbors out that you're friends with, and you're just standing out talking, like chit-chatting. And I remember being in a neighborhood, like we talked with our neighbors and stuff, but like there were weeks would go by where you wouldn't even see any of your neighbors. Like in a campground setting, that doesn't happen. Like you have to go boondock somewhere in the middle of the forest if you don't want to see anyone and don't want to talk to anyone. So for us, like we couldn't imagine not having that be part of our life too, and our kids.
Do you find? Go ahead.
I was just going to add that like another transition we've done is kind of travel a little bit slower. So we've been in this campground here for like a couple months now, where before we traveled weekly or if not daily, so
which we will again.
We will. But we'll also kind of settle down for a little while and let the kids kind of settle in, and they like that too. They like the break of traveling. So
do you find there are a lot of other travelers that are doing the same thing, so your kids can kind of get to know the other kids in the campground, or is it very transient?
No, it's definitely very transient, but there's a lot of different groups out there. There's like this full-time families group that's just like a whole organization of other families that are out traveling. So if we want to meet other kids for our kids to play with, like you just have to try a little bit and we'll find them. But it is hard then when the kids have to say bye. Like that is definitely something that gets hard, but usually it's just, we'll see you down the road. Like we have run into, there's a family here that my daughter's friends with that we have run into probably 5 times on the road in the last year, and we didn't even try. Like we didn't even plan it. So it is, and it's because there are these certain parks you go to. They're called 1,000 Trails that you get a membership to, and you go to a 1,000 Trails campground. They're all over the country, and you're guaranteed to run into a family one time or another. So there are different ways like that. And then we do have friends that we've made that we're really good friends with the parents, and our kids are really good friends. So we put in an effort to say, let's meet here. Let's meet up there. So then our kids do have these ongoing friendships over the years because we've continued to meet up, multiple times on the road.
Wow.
So cool. When you were talking international, were you thinking like you're going to bring your rig over there or get an RV over there, or you're just going to go like the normal like Airbnb or hotel kind of travel?
Yeah, I think that, we would love to, maybe do, a smaller size RV through, New Zealand or Australia, stuff like that. And maybe in Europe, we've heard some people talk about getting smaller size rigs and doing that, but it would be getting one when we got there and doing it. But I really think it would be more Airbnb hopping and kind of learning and figuring out how to do that was our thought. And maybe it'd be, 3 months over there and then 3 months back here RVing, or maybe 6 months and 6 months or something like that. So that's, again, another reason why we haven't really bought a house, because we're like, well, why would we do that if we're going to leave it and come back? But we want the flexibility. We don't want to rent it out and not be able to come back when we want to. So, so with an RV, we can just put it in storage and then take it out when we get back, and that's pretty easy to do.
Is full-time RVing like an American thing, or is that something that happens around the world?
I think it's strongly an American thing. I think you will find it in a few other places, but you only find these gigantic rigs in the U.S. So you go somewhere else and people are doing it. I know people doing it with kids in a van, that are going around Europe and, things like that, or in a smaller size, Class C type of RV. But I think at least from our research, it's definitely more American. Well, and Canada and Mexico, I guess all North America, you can pretty much do with any size rig.
I'm curious just to dig in a little bit about, you were mentioning camp life and how wonderful that is. And I know when we go camping, it's always a wonderful experience, and we always love it. Can you just maybe highlight how camp life is different from when you had your 3,000 square foot home? I know you were mentioning neighbors, but what else is what makes it so wonderful?
I think it is that you just open your door and your windows and you're outside. And depending on what campground you're at, you can have amazing views when you open your window. I also like that it changes. So if you don't like your neighbors, or you don't like the campground, or you don't like where you are, you're going to move somewhere else next week anyways. So we like the flexibility of that. But I would say the biggest thing just really is having neighbors that are outside all the time. It's rare that someone sits in their RV all day long. So it's awesome that just people are out, they're mingling, they're talking, they're friendly, they're looking to make friendships. And even when everything was going on in this past year, you could still stand 6 feet away from someone and talk to them. And we never felt isolated, at all, because everyone wanted to talk and interact, and you were outside, and you didn't have to go knock on someone's door. How awkward is it if you go knock on your neighbor's door? Hi, are you home? Can I come in? And I know when people do that to me, the house is a mess. Please don't come in. We're here. You're sure, let's just go stand outside on the patio, or we're just sitting out anyways. And it's just so much easier to connect with people. I think is the biggest part about it for me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and the other thing is different campgrounds have really cool different things. The one we're at now, the kids have been surfing almost 3 times a week, just because it's something here that they can do.
Yeah, so we're right on the beach. So we just walk I think it's 100 yards and we're at the beach. Wow. So it's a surfing beach.
Yeah, so we can take advantage of those things, which is really cool. In a house, you have what you have, and that's what you got. So
yeah, and then also pools at campgrounds. There can be some awesome pools or water parks and things like that, or just really good playgrounds. And or also location wise, if you're in a national park, we stayed in Kings Canyon National Park by Sequoia National Park, and we just walked right out our door and went on a hike to see the 3rd largest tree in the world. It's just right out your back door. So in that type of stuff, it's changeable. You can't be there now because it's freezing cold and there's 10 feet of snow. But when we can be there, we'll go. And then when you want to move on, you move on. So I think all those reasons.
Yeah.
Wow.
So cool.
So I want to dig into education a little bit because, when you started, it sounds like your kids were not school age or just
6 years old. So were they enrolled in school, or were you already homeschooling?
Yeah, we were always planning on homeschooling.
Okay. Did you, what inspired you in that way? You just want the freedom for it? Were you homeschooled growing up? What inspired the idea of homeschooling?
Oh, my parents were both teachers. So they told me, you are going to homeschool your kids, right?
She's a teacher too, and she's homeschooling.
I was homeschooled. I became a teacher,
12.
and then I'm like, I'm homeschooling my kids.
So you understand then. You get it. But yeah, so right away my mom was like, when our oldest was born, she was like, oh yeah, you might want to look into homeschooling. So, okay, I don't know. So we kind of started to do some research in it and then decided, I think when he was about 2, we were like, okay, yep, we're going to homeschool him and like all of our kids. And then we actually made a decision at that time too that we were going to unschool our kids, which is a form of homeschooling. And we chose that we were going to do that, and this lifestyle in a lot of ways fits really well with unschooling. In a lot of ways it doesn't. So we've kind of had to adjust it to fit into our lifestyle and what we're doing. But so we've always done that. Our kids have never been in school. We've never done any formal curriculum. They don't even know what grade they're in. I don't know what grade they're in. Like, it's all kind of really done and very, like, as I think we're coming across with all of our answers.
It's just a crazy family adventure.
Exactly. It fits.
No, that's so cool. I'm sure they're learning so much from all the different places you go, all the different, there's even the parks themselves, but I'm sure you're stopping in museums, and I'm sure it's up.
And a thing to say about unschooling too, there definitely is something to say about pursuing education where your child is at. If they are passionate about something, they'll learn it. They will want to learn it, and they'll find a way. If you're, shoving it down their throat and forcing them just because this is where you're supposed to be on this month and this school year, they may learn it kicking and screaming. They may not retain it. So I feel like it's definitely a form of education. Some people love it, some people don't, but I see that it works well with some families. And like just recently, one observation we had, I've been trying to encourage my son to read and write for this whole year, and it's like pulling teeth, and especially the writing. He hates practicing to write, and we would just do the drills every day. And then finally we're like, you know what? Let's just not push him to do this anymore. And so I just stopped. I'm like, well, all right, you don't need to do your writing practice. We're just going to go several weeks without doing writing practice. And all of a sudden, he just is staying up till like 10 at night in his
little
room
book lamp.
with a little book light, and he's writing stories. He's just sounding them out in his head, sitting there and just writing them. The next morning he comes in and he's, look at the story I wrote. Look at this story I wrote. And I was like, wow, the power of that. Sometimes we overestimate how much we have to do to make them learn, and we don't give them the benefit of the doubt that this is kind of an intuitive human nature to learn and to want to grow and explore and to be curious, and you will naturally learn when you feel ready for it.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what we've done from day one with our kids. And it's crazy. Like, we have taught none of them how to read. They just learned how to read. Like, it's crazy. Like, it is crazy how that, and people don't believe me, but I'm like, I'm telling you guys, like, we didn't do anything besides read to them and talk to them and, answer questions when they had it. And they just learned how to do it by themselves. The same thing with writing, like, did nothing to practice that at all. Now, granted, if we sit down and say, like, let's write a letter, like, we have to kind of explain to them, like, well, this is where that goes, or this is where that goes, and like those type of things. But we've also seen that if they want to know how to do it, especially nowadays, when your teacher used to say, like, well, you never have a calculator in your back pocket. Yeah, we do. Like, nowadays, like, everything is so easy to be able to find an example or something to see. So our big thing with our kids is just teaching them the skills to find the answers when they need it and when they want it. So if you don't know an answer to a question, do you know how to get the answer? And if you know how to get the answer, you are way farther ahead than most people, because you're not waiting for someone to give you the answer. Instead, you're going to find it yourself. And that's been really important to us, to make sure that they have those skills. And it's been amazing. And you talked about, like, how kids retaining things. Like, I went all the way through college degree and whatever and got good grades and all of that. Like, I don't remember, like, 80% of it. Like, no joke. Like, what? I don't even know. Like, I wrote a book and he asked me what a verb and an adverb is. And I'm like, let me go Google that. Like, it's just not, like, that's not how my brain works. Like, granted, he remembers things, like, much better, like facts and things like that. But it's that idea that every kid, every person is so different. So why shove things down their throat in one way when they may just learn it on their own? And we've seen time and time again that they do just learn it and pick it up, and it's amazing. So we do tell people, though, we'll let you know in like 10 years if we really screwed up or if this was a good choice. But for now, we're good letting it ride and giving it a go and seeing how things are going, because we're continuously seeing progress with the kids too. And we keep an eye on that, like not progress based on their age or their grade, but progress on each individual kid. And if we're seeing they are learning, they're picking things up, like things are clicking, they're understanding things, and just kind of keeping an eye on it that way.
Great.
Cool.
That's very cool. So is there a favorite place you've been to, or a favorite state perhaps, or favorite area, just a place that really inspires you find yourself continuing to return there, or you pretty much just like everywhere you go?
And are you guys snowbirds?
Yeah, we are snowbirds. When it comes to winter, we have done multiple things. We've gone down to Baja, Mexico for winter, and that was amazing. And Baja, Mexico remains one of our favorite places. Like the kids too will just say like it was awesome. They loved it. So that's definitely up at the top of the list. Then now we're wintering down in South Texas, which we haven't done before, and it's obviously around the beach and everything. It's awesome. We've wintered out in Southern California. We've wintered down in Florida. All of those like main places that you would go. But when we talk about favorite places, it's definitely hard to give like an answer and say it's this city and this place and that's the only one. Instead, it's like there's a bunch of them. So Baja, Mexico, Utah, like the California coast, of course. Pacific Northwest was amazing. We love the Florida Keys. And then Craig's favorite state is?
I love Montana.
Montana.
I love it.
So we keep going back to Montana in the summer. And so really there isn't one place. There's some places that I would say we're kind of like, we don't really need to go back there again, per se. But we also know that if we did go back there, we would find cool things we still haven't done. So above all, I would say everywhere we've gone, we found something unique and cool and interesting about the places that we've been. But obviously we're still doing this, so we have not found some place we never wanted to leave.
So Bryanna, I know that your family is very on board with this lifestyle. I'm curious, Craig, your family, how did they take this decision to pick up and take the RV lifestyle? Are they also on board? Are they a little more like, let's see how this goes?
No, they're totally on board and totally supportive. I think they are obviously sad that we're not closer, to see them more often. But like we talked about before, when we do see them, it's like a magical thing. Like they're so excited. My mom's in tears because she's so happy, and the kids are too. So they're very supportive. They're a little bittersweet, when we're leaving, obviously. But yeah, no, they're very supportive, and we've tried to get them to come to meet us like multiple times a year. But with work schedules and stuff with them, it's hard to do. They've done it a couple times, which has been really fun because it's cool to like show them this lifestyle and kind of see some of the cool things that we're seeing. But yeah, they're supportive, and they always we know we always have a spot in their driveway, so it's always good. Yeah.
On a more serious note, how do you feel about safety, traveling around and being in new areas? And have you ever felt like, oh, I don't like this campground, wish we didn't stop here? Or is there ever any feeling in that way? Or you've pretty much found that, where you go, you bump into good people and you really enjoy most of your experiences?
For the most part, I would say that. Like the majority of it, you bump into good people. There's so many good people out there and people looking out for each other and everything. There's been a few campgrounds we've gone to that it was like, yeah, I'm not going to sleep too good tonight. And yep, good thing we're leaving in the morning. And we've stayed like in Walmart parking lots, overnight, which you can do, and a lot of them allow you to do that. And sometimes that's like, okay, there's some weird people parked over there. But I would say for the most part, like,
yeah, no, obviously it hasn't deterred us to do really anything, but there have been a few times where it got a little bit, a little awkward. But yeah, for the most part, people are very friendly and very open and helpful too. So yeah, overall we felt very safe. And we've gone to Mexico, we've gone to Canada, we've gone coast to coast pretty much. So yeah, I think it's pretty good.
How is it for your children in terms of friendship, since you're always on the go? Do they feel satisfied in that regard, especially as they get a little bit older? Maybe I'm curious how they're handling the constant change from location to location.
I think good or bad, our kids are kind of used to it. So we started so young that to them it wasn't a big change to have it be like that. And then also in this day and age with all the electronics, so they're on like the Messenger kids through Facebook with all the friends they meet. So my daughter, I think right now, is talking to a friend that was here and that left. So they definitely stay in touch that way, or they do with their gaming, like they'll be chatting with another friend that's playing the game too. So they've definitely learned how to just stay in touch. There are times when I think back and I'm like, oh, if we would have stayed in one place, they would have potentially had these deep childhood friendships that they would have potentially formed. But the big word there is potentially.
Right.
So there are kids who go through life and don't make those lifelong friendships with kids that were younger. And I think the majority of people actually don't.
Right.
So for that reason, I do feel the friendships that they're making on the road are very deep because they're spending literally 10 or 12 hours a day together, sometimes for months or at least weeks at a time. So these friendships they're forming are really significant. They're not just the kind of like, oh, we'll see you on the weekend and then we never see you again. They're with these people a lot and multiple times throughout the year. So I think for the most part that they've done really well with it, and we don't hear a lot of complaints about that from them. And what I do love about it is I think their sibling relationship is so strong and stronger in this lifestyle than it would have been if we were in a house. Maybe if we were in a house in homeschooling, it still would have been the same, but especially if we would have stayed in a house, they would have gone to school, they would have spent so much less time together as siblings. So we're really excited about that and those relationships too.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, like how tight your family probably is, just spending, every waking day together in close quarters. And, like, especially like this past year, so many families were kind of forced to spend close proximity together, working together, living together. And during the whole pandemic, and a lot of them caused a lot of problems, a lot of issues, a lot of strife. I'm wondering, like, was that a concern for you when you were transitioning from this large house to the small quarters where, like, can we really get along? Can we make this work? Was that ever a thought? And is that something people should be cautioned to think about prior to pursuing something like this? If after, like, listening to this, they're like, oh, I love this idea. And I know we got to dive into your book because you kind of talk about this, I'm sure. But what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, as I kind of laughed because in my book here, The Full-Time RVing with Kids, An Insider's Guide to Life on the Road, Chapter 2 is all about the 14 questions to ask yourself before you get on the road.
Oh, sweet.
Question number 1 is, do you like your family? And we break down, I get a little bit more in details with that, but for that exact reason, like, this is not dad leaving to go to work for 10 hours of the day or mom dropping the kids off and she then heads out to work, whatever that may look like. This is constant and it is very, very different to do that. But we think it has made us as individuals grow as people and our family bond grow. There are times when I sometimes feel like we're together too much and it would be better to be apart more, as I think a lot of people this year have learned. But I do think by being together this often, you figure out how to work within each other and what's going to work and what isn't going to work. And with being in a small space, like, to us, it doesn't feel like a small space because we're outside so much. Like, that's part of our life. So it really doesn't feel that small. On a rainy day, it may feel a little bit tight, but for the most part, we have plenty of room because we just are outside and the kids are used to that. So it hasn't really been an issue. But I would say, like, you have to like your spouse. Your spouse should be like one of your, not if the only best friend, but at least one of your best friends and someone who you're very close to and just enjoy spending time with. And with your kids, I think the same thing, like, you have to all cut each other slack. And try to be as nice to each other as you can. But if you park next to us at the RV park, you will hear us yelling. We yell, we fight hard, we love hard, we do all that stuff. So.
I was going to ask that question. I was going to say, do your kids squabble a lot in the house? Do they get into, arguments and so forth? Because in close quarters, I can only imagine that would intensify.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they definitely do. But then they also hear, like, us arguing, and then they hear us, like, working through it. So then they realize, like, oh, you can argue with the spouse, and then you can, like, make it through it, like, fine. And they see that happen. And I think, like, in this tight quarters, like, they're just really seeing real life. Like, they're not seeing this, like, life that's only, like, that they're set into. Like, okay, we'll be quiet when you're home, and then you go to school and you live this structured life. And then, they're seeing how everything works, how we work out in the morning, how we're cooking food, how we get up and we do then work, and, like, how that works. And then how we argue, how our friendships are with the people we know. Like, everyone's just so intertwined in real life that I think there is a big benefit to that. And I think living this close together is amazing.
Yeah.
And I would recommend it. Just be prepared. Like, just know it's not all rainbow and sunshine.
No, it's not. But on the other hand of hearing us argue, they also hear how we resolve it, how we work through it. So they're seeing all of that, and it's not just like, okay, now mom and dad are friends again. It's like, no, this is how they work through it. So it's a good kind of relationship, kind of experience for them to see.
Wow.
And also, I think like with this lifestyle, you live like your highest highs and your lowest lows. Like it's a very turbulent kind of lifestyle. So for good and for bad, they're both there. So.
Wow.
That's cool.
So tell us more about your book. Is it like a guide for families who are considering this lifestyle, or is it more of like a journal about your adventures? Tell us
And where can you get it?
What is it about?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so this is it, and it is 26 chapters, and I think it's like 256 pages or something like that.
Nice.
So it is filled with actually a combination of all of that. So we really break down for you those questions to ask yourself. We talk about which rig to pick and give you tips on doing that. We also talk about getting mail. We talk about school and doctor's visits and all of those things.
Oh, wow.
But then we also get into what it felt like for us after year 1, after year 2. We explain how we became a full-time family, and we really dive a lot into not just this is how you do it, but also this is how it feels. And this is how you can expect to react or how you can expect to handle things. And I've had multiple people like write reviews for it on Amazon and have said in it felt like they were sitting at the campfire with me having the conversation, which that was exactly what I wanted it to be. Like, if you want the how-tos, I'll give you those, and I'll also give you some tips on where you can find even more detail on a lot of that stuff. And I'll also give you the real, true, like, feeling without hiding it. It's not like it's all so great and amazing. It is, but it's also really hard and really challenging, and there's bad things about it too, and trying to cover that in it as well. So you can find it on Amazon. So if you just go on Amazon and search full-time RVing with kids, it's going to pop up right there. And you can buy it on Amazon in paperback, or you can also get it in Kindle if you want to download it to your Kindle and just listen to it. So I'm hopefully going to be putting an audio version of it out where I will read the book, but that is on the list of the multiple things I'd like to do. So
we're big audiobook listeners, so you get that one out. We'll be listening.
All right. There you go. Push me to do it.
Is there like any big, I'm just curious if there's any like big goals for 2021 that you want to do with the family and in terms of adventure, or just see what comes?
Well, we were planning on doing Alaska, but we're still not able to do the border crossing with Canada. So our plan had to change big time. So we're kind of heading back out west, and we're going to do some more sightseeing and revisiting some of the places that we've loved in the past, and also some new spots. So,
and we might try some overnight tent camping, which we haven't really done with the kids, because when we had the dogs with us, we weren't really able to easily do that. So we may do some tent camping and things, but really, like, we know where we're going to be next week, and we know where we're going to be like in like a month, and like beyond that, it's kind of like, well, I think this is where we're going to go and what we're going to do. So we'll kind of let it ebb and flow as we go. And it is hard right now with RVing, because RVing's so popular, but we do a lot of boondocking where you can stay for free on public land with no hookups or anything, and you don't need a reservation. You can just show up and like stay in the land. So we kind of know that there's ways we can find places to stay like last minute and everything. So we're going to kind of go with the flow and be West Coast is the plan.
Wow. And boondocking, is that just a thing that's like nationwide and you just find those places?
Yeah. It is. Out west, there's definitely more than there is on the East Coast, just because there's more space on the West Coast and more open land. So it's a lot easier to find in the West Coast, especially like Utah, Nevada, Montana, Wyoming. There's like a ton of places. And then you get way West Coast on the coast and not as much. But if you're a little bit inland, there's just a ton of things you can do. And yeah, it's definitely a thing. Anything people do. You need to have good, like, well, you don't have to, but we recommend having like solar and generator, and knowing like how to like get water and get rid of water. And there's some tips and things, you know, to help you learn how to do that. But once you've done that, it's an awesome way to travel and a good money saver too, because it's free.
Wow.
So on your blog, tell us the name of your blog and what can someone find on it? Is it basically you journaling as you're going along your adventures? What else do you
You guys have a YouTube channel too, right?
We do. We have a YouTube channel. So our main focus, it's called Crazy Family Adventure, and our website is crazyfamilyadventure.com. And our main focus is the blog, and we kind of do YouTube as an add-on to the content we're writing. And the content we're writing, it's not journal format really at all. It's definitely more written in like things to do at locations you go to, or tips on if you're looking for solar, what type of a setup you want, and really informative to help people get on the road or when they go to location to figure out what to do when you're at that location is what our goal has been with it. And then if you follow us on social media on like Instagram and Facebook, and I'm trying TikTok, my daughter's really good at it, trying to learn it. If you follow us on those platforms, that's a little bit more of the journaling idea of it, kind of where we're at right then, and Instagram stories, a little bit more of the raw, like in the life type of stuff. So the blog is definitely more information based, and social media is where you'll find that. And then YouTube, we don't know what the heck we're doing on there, so we're kind of just having fun with it. We do some blog style stuff, we do some informative things, we do some campaign work with people. So we're just kind of figuring that out as we go too.
Well, Bryanna and Craig, it's really been a pleasure. I'm just curious, when people hear your story, what do you really hope that they kind of get inspired to do within their own lives?
We just hope that they're inspired to go live the life the way they want to, and to not let anything get in the way, and to figure and to see that you don't need all your ducks in a row to live the life of your dreams. You just got to be willing to go for it and figure it out along the way.
That's so awesome. Again, Bryanna and Craig, thanks so much for coming on to the Fan Investor podcast. It really has been a pleasure.
It has. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.